My parents skipped my son's birthday for my sister's kids. My dad told me flatly a week before my son's birthday, "We can't come this year. Money's tight." I nodded, pretending to understand because that's what you do when it's your dad. You believe him, even when the words scrape like sandpaper inside your chest. I told him we weren't planning anything big, just a small gathering at the park, dollar store balloons, a homemade cake, and a few friends from school. My son only asked for one thing, that his grandparents be there. I even said they didn't need to bring gifts. Just show up, drink coffee with us, and clap when he blew out the candles. That was all. Mom replied with a single thumbs up emoji. Dad added a vague, "We'll see." It felt like a no, but I held on to hope because hope is all a kid really has when it comes to grandparents. The morning of his birthday, my son was eating cereal, deciding whether to bring his scooter to the park. I scrolled through my phone absentmindedly, and that's when I saw it. A notification. My sister's live stream. I shouldn't have tapped it, but I did. The screen exploded with color. A massive bounce house and red and blue children shrieking with laughter. Clowns juggling. A magician pulling scarves out of thin air. Tables stacked high with cupcakes, each topped with custom cartoon decorations from my nephew's favorite show. And there, front and center, was my dad carrying a tray of treats, grinning like the proud host. My mom fussed over decorations, adjusting a photo booth prop. Behind them towered piles of gifts wrapped in shiny paper stacked taller than my son. My breath caught. It wasn't just a party. It was a carnival. I froze, phone trembling in my hand. My son leaned over my shoulder, his little voice almost a whisper. "Is that Grandpa?" I forced myself to nod. He went silent for a long beat. Then he asked, softer than I've ever heard him, "Don't they need me?" That question shattered something inside me. At the park later, my husband grilled hot dogs, tried to keep the mood light, but my mind was elsewhere. My son clutched the handmade birthday card he had drawn for my dad, a crayon heart with "I love you," scrawled in uneven letters, and waited. He never asked again why they weren't coming. He just knew. And I knew too. This wasn't carelessness. This wasn't bad timing. This was deliberate. A choice. That night, after everyone left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the digital receipt for the rent check we had quietly paid for my parents every month for 3 years. $950 on time without fail. I snapped a photo of it, attached it to an email, and typed 3 words in the subject line, "Return to sender." I hit send. My hands stopped shaking. Because if they could spend thousands throwing a carnival for my sister's kids while telling mine that money was tight, then they didn't just betray me. They betrayed my son, and I wasn't going to let it happen again. The morning after my son's birthday, the knocking started. Heavy, insistent, shaking the door frame. My husband sipped his coffee calm as ever. "It's them," he said. Through the peephole, I saw my dad, jaw set, eyes hard. My mom clutching a pink pastry box and a Party City bag. They looked like they'd dressed for an apology, but arrived carrying excuses. I cracked the door with the chain still on. Dad barked, "Open up. We need to talk." His tone wasn't sorry. It was annoyed. Like I was the one who had embarrassed them. I didn't budge. "Say the truth first. You lied. You told me money was tight, then threw a circus for my sister's kids." Mom tried her soft voice. "It wasn't like that, darling. We didn't mean clowns bounce house cupcakes with custom toppers." I cut her off. "That wasn't an accident." Dad's face hardened. "You don't cancel rent checks without warning. Do you understand what kind of position you put us in?" I almost laughed. "Do you understand what kind of position you put him in?" My son sat here, wondering if he wasn't needed anymore. Then, Dad pulled a key from his pocket, our old spare from years ago. "We can come in if we want," he warned. Behind me, my husband's voice cut through the tension. "Try it. See what happens." Dad's bluff slipped. He shoved the key back into his pocket. Then he leaned close and hissed, "Be careful, Nicole. Family has long memories. Don't be surprised when things don't come your way later." The inheritance threat. Their favorite card. I stared straight at him. "Keep it. Buy another clown." For once, he didn't know what to say. They left me standing at the door with that empty threat about inheritance still hanging in the air. But I knew this wasn't over. My father never leaves things at a draw. He always circles back, looking for a way to reassert control. That evening, just as I finished cleaning up from dinner, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad tomorrow evening. "Family meeting, be at the house." No question mark, no invitation, just a command. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something in me wanted to see how far they'd go. Walking up to their house, the next night, I felt 12 years old again, about to get scolded for something I hadn't done. The place hadn't changed, same hedges, same creaky gate, same feeling of being outnumbered. Inside, Clara was scrolling on her phone, Ezra lounging in Dad's chair like he owned it. He smirked when he saw me. "How's life in the cupcake business?" I clenched my jaw and sat down across from him. Dad came in with a stack of papers, his armor of proof. He didn't waste time. Most small businesses fail within 5 years. He began sliding me statistics like they were weapons. "We're concerned. Ezra has offered to oversee your finances." The words hit like a slap. Ezra leaned forward, grinning. "Think of it this way. You do the baking, I'll handle the grown-up stuff. Everyone wins." I felt heat rising in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "You mean I do the work and you take the credit?" Mom sighed dramatically, the way she always does when she thinks I'm being difficult. "We're just trying to protect you. Ezra's promotion shows what stability looks like." That was it. The quiet favoritism finally said out loud. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Do you know why you missed my opening? Because you chose him? Again. And now you want me to hand him the one thing I built myself." For a second, no one spoke. Clara looked up from her phone, startled by the sharpness in my voice. Ezra's smirk faltered. Dad's eyes narrowed the way they do when someone challenges his authority. I had never said it that plainly before, and the silence that followed told me everything they knew. They had always known. The silence after my words was thick enough to choke on. Years of unspoken truths had been shoved under the rug, but I had just yanked it out from under all of us. My father's jaw flexed, his hands tightening around the stack of papers he'd brought. Ezra leaned back in the chair, crossing his arms like a king on his throne, but his smirk didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Finally, Dad broke the silence. You're letting your pride cloud your judgment, Nicole. We're not here to fight. We're here to help you. Help! I repeated, my voice cracking into a bitter laugh. You didn't show up to my son's birthday. You didn't show up to my bakery's opening. You've shown up for Ezra's promotions, for Claire's graduations, for every event that puts them in the spotlight. But when it's me, suddenly there's always an excuse. And now you call this help? No. This is control. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. That's not fair. Fair, I snapped, leaning forward. Do you even remember the last time you celebrated anything that was mine? I've been the one paying your rent every month, covering Claire's car repairs, quietly wiring money when Ezra blew through his savings. And you still stand here acting like I'm some child playing house. Clara finally spoke, her voice small but sharp. You don't have to throw it in our faces. No one asked you to. I turned to her, stunned. No one asked. Clara, do you think those checks wrote themselves? That the groceries in your fridge appeared by magic? You didn't have to ask. You just expected it. All of you did. Dad slammed his hand against the table, making the papers jump. Enough. You are out of line. I stared at him, the man I'd spent my life trying to please. Out of line, or just finally out of reach? Ezra leaned forward, now seizing the silence. Look, little sister, you're emotional. You're scared this bakery will fail. And it probably will. Most do. I'm offering to step in before you sink the ship. Let me take the wheel. I felt a strange calm wash over me. Maybe it was anger finally burning itself into clarity. I met his eyes. Ezra, you've never built anything in your life without someone else clearing the path for you. You don't get to take credit for mine. His smile cracked. Dad shook his head, muttering, you'll regret this. I pushed my chair back and stood. My legs were trembling, but my voice was steady. Maybe I will. But if I fail, it will be my failure, not your convenient excuse to hand my work to Ezra. I looked at each of them, the parents who had raised me on scraps of attention, the brother who lived off their worship, the sister who followed their lead like a shadow. And for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt free. I'm done, I said simply. Done explaining, done begging, done carrying all of you while you cheer for him. The bakery is mine. My life is mine. And none of you get a piece of it anymore. The room was silent again, but it was a different kind of silence, one that belonged to me. I walked out before any of them could stop me. And as the door shut behind me, I swear I heard my mother whisper something under her breath, almost too quiet to catch. She won't last a year. Maybe she thought that would break me. Instead, it lit a fire I hadn't known was still waiting. I thought walking out of that house would be the end of it. That they would sulk, lick their wounds, and eventually leave me alone. I underestimated them. My family doesn't fight clean. They fight in whispers and shadows in the kind of ways that make you question your own footing. It started the very next day. A local blog had posted about morning rise, photos of customers lined up, the smell of fresh bread drifting through the doorway. I should have been thrilled, but then I saw the comments. At the very top, looks like someone's trying to compete with Ezra's franchise. Hope they know what they're doing. Ezra didn't even bother hiding. He'd written it himself under his own name, smug as ever. My blood boiled. But the worst part wasn't his pettiness, it was the ripple effect. Strangers who didn't know me started piling on. Family drama, risky business model, another failed bakery in the making. By the end of the day, I had to force myself not to refresh the page every 10 minutes. I wanted to scream back, to defend what I'd built. Instead, I baked harder. Every loaf, every pastry, I poured myself into it as if the dough could carry my fury. But they didn't stop online. Mom called, pretending concern. Nicole, some people are saying your bakery is overextending. Maybe Ezra could help smooth things over. She said it so sweetly, like she hadn't just been part of the ambush 2 nights before. Clara joined in too. She started posting passive-aggressive little stories on social media, photos of my nephew's soccer games, captions like, proud to support real achievements. People in town saw it, customers saw it, and they knew exactly who the target was. Then came the sabotage I couldn't ignore. A delivery that was supposed to arrive, bags of flour, sugar butter, suddenly canceled without explanation. I called the supplier. He was apologetic, almost embarrassed. Your brother told us he'd be handling your accounts from now on, he said quietly. We thought it was cleared with you. I nearly dropped the phone. Ezra had called my suppliers. He was trying to choke me out from the back end. That night, I sat in the bakery after closing, staring at the receipts and invoices spread across the counter. My husband found me there, my hands shaking as I held the printout of Ezra's online comment. They're trying to ruin me, I whispered. He put his hand over mine. Then let's ruin their plan first. We stayed up until 2 a.m., writing down every step we needed to take new suppliers, backup orders, documenting every attempt at interference. If they wanted to fight in the shadows, I was ready to drag everything into the light. And yet a part of me ached, not for their approval anymore, but for the truth I'd finally accepted. They didn't just doubt me. They wanted me to fail. Ask yourself, what would you do if your own family rooted for your collapse? Would you walk away, or would you fight harder just to prove them wrong? For me, there was no question. The morning after Ezra meddled with my suppliers, I expected to open the bakery and find disappointment waiting for me, empty shelves, frustrated customers, a quiet that would feel like failure. Instead, something else happened. By 7 a.m., people were already lined up outside. Not strangers, but neighbors' faces I'd seen in the grocery store, parents from my son's school, even the mail carrier. When I flipped the sign to open, they filed in like they were on a mission. One woman, Mrs. Patel, pressed a small bag of flour into my hands. "Heard you might need this? Don't ask how I know," she said with a wink. Behind her, the butcher from the corner store placed a carton of eggs on the counter. "Consider this a tray for tomorrow's sourdough," he said. Word had spread, not about my family's sabotage specifically, but enough whispers had trickled through town to rally people in ways I never expected. They weren't just here for bread, they were here for me. That night, I scrolled through local Facebook groups and saw something that stopped me cold. A post from one of my regulars, a photo of Morning Rise's display case, with the caption, "Support Local." This place is magic. Dozens of comments poured in, neighbors tagging friends, people I didn't know planning weekend trips to stop by. It was grassroots, organic, unstoppable. Meanwhile, Clara posted another jab online, something about family loyalty and bitterness. But this time, people weren't buying it. A few even pushed back, defending me. "Her bakery's amazing. Stop tearing her down." Seeing those words from strangers, not blood, felt heavier than any apology my family could offer. And the best part? My suppliers weren't fooled for long. By the end of the week, 3 of them called to confirm directly with me, apologizing for the confusion Ezra had caused. One even admitted, "Your brother sounded pushy. We should have checked with you first." Every attempt they made to sabotage me was backfiring. The community was watching, and instead of letting me sink, they lifted me higher. But my parents didn't see it that way. They only saw me refusing to bend. They only saw Ezra losing control. And people like them, people addicted to power, don't take kindly to losing it. I could feel it. Something bigger was coming. If whispers and sabotage didn't work, I should have known they'd eventually go loud. My family has always loved an audience. It happened at the Saturday Farmers Market. Morning Rise had earned a booth, just a folding table, a banner I'd painted by hand, and rows of pastries that smelled like hope. I was nervous, but proud. It felt like stepping into the heartbeat of the community. By 10 a.m., the line stretched halfway down the aisle. Kids pointed at the cookies couples bought croissants to share, and strangers kept asking if I had a brick-and-mortar store. For once, my world was expanding. Then I saw them, my parents, Clara, and of course, Ezra dressed in his sharpest suit, like he was attending a business convention, not a market. They weren't there to support me. I could see it in the way Dad scanned the crowd already assembling his jury. They walked straight to my booth. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile. "Good morning," I said, loud enough for the customers nearby to hear. Ezra wasted no time. He picked up a loaf of sourdough, turned it over in his hands, and smirked. "Looks nice. But tell me, Nicole, do you really think this is sustainable? Or are you just burning through money you don't have?" The air shifted. Customers glanced up, curious. My father folded his arms. "We're worried about her. She's in over her head." Ezra offered to help, but she won't listen. My mother chimed in sweetly, eyes glistening as if rehearsed. "Families should stick together. It breaks my heart to see her push us away." I felt heat rise in my cheeks, but this time I didn't shrink. I looked at the crowd, the real people who had shown up for me. "Let's be clear," I said steady and loud. "I built this bakery. I funded it. I run it. My family didn't come to my opening. They didn't even show up to my son's birthday. But now that they see I'm succeeding suddenly, they want to help." Murmurs rippled through the line. Ezra's smirk faltered. Dad's jaw clenched. Mom blinked fast, her performance cracking. I leaned forward on the table. "This isn't about help. This is about control. And I'm done letting them take credit for what they never cared to build." For a moment, silence. Then from the middle of the line, someone spoke up. Mrs. Patel, holding a bag of cookies. "She doesn't need your help," she said firmly. "She's doing just fine without you." The applause started small, 1 or 2 claps, but it spread like fire. Customers nodded, smiling at me, clapping louder until the sound drowned out whatever my father was about to say. Ezra dropped the loaf back onto the table with more force than necessary. My parents exchanged a look, realizing they'd lost the crowd. Without another word, they turned and walked away, Clara trailing behind. My hands were shaking, but I stood tall. For once, they hadn't left me humiliated. They had left themselves exposed. The applause from the farmers market still echoed in my head days later. For the first time, I had stood up to my family in public and people had stood with me. But the real turning point came the following week, when the local food magazine issue hit the stands. Morning Rise wasn't just mentioned, it was featured. Full-page photos of golden loaves stacked like art cinnamon rolls, dripping glaze under perfect lighting. My hands captured mid-knead on a flowered counter. The headline read, "Morning Rise, the bakery that defied the odds." I bought 2 copies the second I saw it. When I walked into the bakery that morning, customers were already holding the magazine, waving it at me with pride, like they'd all been part of the journey. Some asked me to autograph their copies. I laughed embarrassed, but inside my chest felt like it was on fire in the best way. By noon, sales doubled. A local cafe placed an order for 200 pastries for an upcoming event. My inbox filled with inquiries from wedding planners, schools, even a hospital interested in supplying baked goods to their cafeteria. My dream wasn't just surviving, it was expanding faster than I dared to imagine. And that's exactly when my family struck back. It started with Clara, who posted on Facebook, "Funny how some people chase attention instead of family loyalty. Success doesn't erase betrayal." Comments flooded in, some sympathetic, some skeptical. She knew what she was doing. She wanted me painted as selfish as ungrateful. Then my mom called, voice dripping with false worry. "Nicole, people are talking. Ezra just doesn't want you to embarrass yourself. You don't know how vicious business can be." I almost laughed at the irony. "You're right," I said flatly. I didn't know business could be this vicious until my own family decided to sabotage me. But it was Ezra who delivered the hardest punch. A rumor began spreading through town that my bakery was drowning in debt, that I'd taken loans I couldn't pay back, that the magazine piece was nothing more than a puff story hiding financial disaster. Suppliers called, nervous. A few customers hesitated before placing big orders. For a day or two, I panicked. My stomach twisted with the familiar fear that maybe they were right. Maybe I couldn't outrun their shadow. But then I remembered the receipts, the invoices, the proof I'd been documenting since the beginning. So I made a decision I wasn't going to hide. I printed out the magazine feature and posted it proudly in the bakery window. Beneath it, I pinned copies of real receipts, catering contracts, supplier confirmations, bank statements showing I was in the black. No spin, no rumor, just the truth. The next morning, a line wrapped around the block. Customers told me they'd seen the rumors online, but they came anyway because the bread spoke louder than gossip. And when one customer asked if Ezra's franchise had ever been featured in the same magazine, I smiled and said, "No, but Morning Rise has." That was the moment I realized something powerful. My family could spread lies, but they couldn't erase what I built with my own hands. And I knew deep down their next move would be desperate. Because losing control over me was one thing. Losing control in front of everyone else, that was their nightmare. I should have expected it, but nothing truly prepares you for when your own family decides your child is a weapon. It started small, subtle jabs, wrapped in fake affection. My mom dropped off a card at the bakery one morning while I was in the back kneading dough. By the time I noticed, she was gone. Inside, written in her flowery script, "Tell your son grandma loves him and misses him every day. He shouldn't have to suffer because of adult pride." I tore the card in half, but the words clung to me like grease on skin. Pride, that's what she called it, as if boundaries were nothing more than ego. A few days later, Clara posted on Facebook again, this time, a photo of her twins opening gifts with the caption, "Family means showing up for the kids." Too bad not everyone remembers that. The comments section was a minefield of veiled digs about selfish parents and kids who suffer because of drama. My name wasn't there, but it didn't have to be. Everyone knew who she meant. Then came Ezra's move. He showed up at my son's school. Not to pick him up, he had no reason to be there. He just happened to attend a charity event on the campus lawn, shaking hands, talking loud, making sure parents saw him as the successful, generous uncle. When my son came home that day, he asked me why Uncle Ezra said he'd buy him a bike once things cooled down. I froze. My son was 10. He didn't understand manipulation yet, but he understood promises. And Ezra knew exactly what he was doing, making me look like the barrier between my son and shiny new things. That night, my husband found me sitting at the kitchen table, hands trembling as I scrolled through Ezra's smug social media posts. "They're circling him now," I whispered. "They couldn't break me, so they're aiming for him." He didn't hesitate. Then we draw the line harder. The next morning, I sat my son down. I told him as gently as I could that not every gift comes with love, and not every promise is meant to be kept. I told him that sometimes people try to buy your heart when they've already broken their own. His eyes watered, but he nodded. He's stronger than I ever was at his age. But my family wasn't done. The real blow came a week later. I opened the bakery one morning to find a flyer shoved under the door. On it was a collage of photos, my parents with their grandkids, Claire's twins at Christmas, Ezra, grinning with a trophy-like smile. In the corner, bold letters, "Kids deserve unity, not division. Don't punish them for adult mistakes." It wasn't just a dig. It was a message. They were turning the narrative into a public crusade, me as the villain who robbed my son of his grandparents. For a moment, I almost crumbled. What if people believed them? What if my customers saw me as bitter, selfish, cruel? I pressed my hands against the cool glass of the bakery window and fought back tears. Then a familiar voice broke the silence. Mrs. Patel, the same neighbor who'd once handed me flour, stood outside with her shopping bag. "Don't let them fool you," she said firmly. "We see what you're doing here. You're raising him right, not spoiling him rotten. Don't you dare forget that." I nodded, my throat too tight to answer. That evening, my son handed me a drawing he'd made. Just the three of us, me, him, and my husband sitting in the bakery with bread on the shelves and customers smiling at the counter. Underneath, he'd written, "The family that shows up." That's when I knew they could twist words, spread lies, even dangle gifts. But my son saw the truth, and that truth was stronger than any manipulation. Still, a chill lingered in my bones. If they'd go this far, what was left, I had a sinking feeling I was about to find out. The day it all came to a head started like any other. The bakery smelled of cinnamon and butter sunlight, spilling across the counter as I set out trays of croissants. I thought I'd finally reached a rhythm, early mornings, long days, but peace. Customers filtered in with smiles, and for a few hours, I almost believed the storm had passed. But storms don't vanish. They build. Around noon, the bell above the door jingled. I looked up expecting another customer. Instead, I saw them, my parents Ezra and Clara, standing shoulder to shoulder like a firing squad. For a second, the bakery went silent. Even the espresso machine seemed to hold its breath. Ezra walked in first, all confidence in his tailored suit. Clara followed, phone in hand, already recording. My mom's lips were pressed tight, while my dad wore the expression I remembered from childhood. Part disappointment, part threat. What are you doing here? My voice was steady, though my heart raced. Ezra smirked. We're here to talk. You've made quite a scene lately, Nicole, and it's time people know the truth. Behind him, Clara raised her phone higher. She was streaming. My blood ran cold. They hadn't come to talk. They'd come to stage a public humiliation. My mom spoke next, voice dripping with rehearsed sorrow. Your brother just wants to help, but you've pushed us away, Nicole. You've punished this family, even your son. Don't I snapped my voice sharp enough to cut glass. Don't you dare bring him into this again. A couple of customers froze mid-bite, unsure whether to leave or stay. One mother quietly took her daughter's hand and slipped out the bell chiming softly behind her. Ezra leaned on the counter like he owned it. Let's be honest here. You're in over your head. You've been reckless chasing attention instead of stability. This bakery won't last, and when it collapses, guess who will suffer? Your son. Unless, of course, you let me step in. I can stabilize things, protect you from yourself. Something inside me cracked, not with fear, but with fury. I thought of the nights I'd stayed up until 3 a.m., baking the mornings I'd scrubbed these floors until my hands ached, the contracts I'd secured, the magazine feature pinned in the window. All of it mine. And here was Ezra trying to claim it with a smug smile and a live stream. I stepped out from behind the counter, flour still dusting my apron. Protect me. For myself, I laughed, but it was a sharp, bitter sound. Ezra, you and I both know this isn't about protection. It's about control. You couldn't stand that I built something without you. Without any of you. Clara interrupted, her phone angled toward my face. See? This is what I mean. Paranoid, dramatic. Tell the truth, Nicole. Tell everyone why you really cut us off. I turned to her, my eyes locking on the screen. Fine, here's the truth. I pulled a folder from under the counter, the one I'd been keeping for months. Receipts, invoices, bank statements, even the old spreadsheet of every dollar I'd funneled into their lives. Rent checks, car repairs, tuition, groceries, over $15,000 in silent sacrifices. I slapped the folder onto the counter. Paper spilled like a deck of cards. You want the truth? Here it is. Years of me carrying this family while you mocked me. And the moment I stopped paying, the moment I set boundaries, suddenly I'm the villain. No, not anymore. The live stream caught it all, the receipts, my words, Ezra's stunned silence. My dad stepped forward, his voice low but shaking. Nicole, this isn't the place. No, I cut him off. This is exactly the place because you made it public. You wanted a spectacle. Here it is. Look around. I gestured to the customers, still seated, phones out now recording. My parents' faces drained of color as they realized their ambush had backfired. Ezra's jaw tightened. He tried to grab the folder, but I slammed my hand down first. Touch it, and I'll have you arrested for theft. This bakery's mine. This life is mine. And you don't get to rewrite it. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the hiss of the espresso machine. For once, Ezra had no comeback. Clara lowered her phone, her lips trembling. My mom's eyes darted to the floor while my dad's shoulders slumped, defeated. I took a breath, steady and final. Get out, all of you, and don't come back. They hesitated, but I didn't flinch. One by one, they turned and left. The bell above the door rang, with each exit softer and softer until the bakery was quiet again. A customer near the window started clapping. Another joined. Soon, the room filled with applause. Not for drama, not for spectacle, but for the simple act of standing my ground. I gathered the scattered receipts, my hands steady. My son's drawing, the one that read, "The family that shows up," hung on the corkboard in the back. I touched it briefly and whispered to myself, "We're enough." Because that was the final break. And I wasn't just free of them, I was finally completely free. The morning after the confrontation, the bakery felt different. Not just because the air was lighter or because my shelves sold out faster than usual, but because for the first time, I woke up without dread gnawing at me. No fear of what they'd say next, no waiting for the next blow. Just silence. Funny thing, silence had always scared me. Growing up, silence meant punishment. It meant my dad's simmering anger, my mom's cold shoulder, Clara's sulking, Ezra's smug satisfaction. But now silence felt like oxygen. I walked into morning rise with my son hand in hand. He carried his sketchbook, flipping to the page with his family that shows up drawing. He pinned it to the corkboard himself, this time right next to the magazine feature. He looked at me with that quiet seriousness only kids can have. "Now everyone knows Mom," he said. I hugged him so tightly, he laughed. The days blurred into a rhythm I'd been craving all along. Kneading dough before sunrise, greeting customers by name, watching new faces return week after week. A cafe across town asked for a regular contract. A wedding planner booked me for 3 events in 1 month. Business was steady, strong mine, and my family, nothing. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. Just gone. At first, I half expected them to reappear. Some grand apology, some guilt-soaked monologue about how families fight, but always make up. But it never came. The only proof of their existence was the occasional online jab, Claire posting vague quotes about selfish people. Ezra flaunting his latest bonus, my mom sharing photos of my nephews with captions like, "the only ones who never disappoint me." It should have hurt. Maybe once it would have, but I didn't feel hollow anymore. I felt whole. Late one night, after closing the bakery, I sat outside with my husband. The stars were faint above the city glow, and he handed me a mug of tea. "Do you miss them?" he asked gently. I thought about it. The laughter that never quite included me. The birthday skipped, the rent checks mailed without thanks, the lies, the manipulation, and then I thought about my son's drawing, about the lemon tree we'd planted in our new backyard, about the customers who chose me every morning. "No," I said finally. "I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them. But that's all it ever was, an idea?" He squeezed my hand. Sometimes ideas weigh more than people. I leaned my head on his shoulder, breathing in the quiet. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace. And peace was something I wasn't going to give up ever again. Thank you for watching this story. Sometimes the hardest lessons come not from strangers, but from the people we thought we could trust most. Your support keeps these stories alive. Please subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Together we'll keep telling the truths that families try to bury.